today, writing of the deal, quote, any member of the House or Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years. And tonight, President-elect Trump says Republicans should walk if there's not major changes. In a statement with J.D. Vance, he writes, quote, Republicans want to support our farmers, pay for disaster relief, and set our country up for success in 2025. The only way to do that is with a temporary funding bill without Democratic giveaways, combined with an increase in the debt ceiling. Anything else, he says, is a betrayal of our country. Now, consider this. Just yesterday, there was a packed meeting for the Doge Caucus, the group that will work with Musk to try to trim down Washington. And tonight, here's the position for Republicans. Are they willing to cross Trump and Musk in the days leading up to change? Congressman Dusty Johnson, who was at that Doge meeting, joins us here on the Hill in a moment. But we begin tonight with Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former chief of staff, and Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday. Hello to you all. Nice to have you both in. This is now gut check time for Republicans, is it not? We saw all the sort of hope and joy and enthusiasm, and now all of a sudden, Mick, whoa, what just happened in the last, 24 hours or so?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on, and I'm fascinated by one piece of this puzzle, and there's a bunch of different moving pieces right now, which is not unusual at this time of year in Washington, D.C. The debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is supposed to be a tool that Republicans use to help lower spending, and here they are talking about getting rid of it entirely, so I'm not really sure where that's coming from.
Well, Donald Trump's saying raise it.
That's exactly right.
Which means more spending. I thought Republicans wanted to cut spending and get rid of waste. Maybe I'm confused.
And I get all of it for what happened today, except that piece in part. The CR was a disaster of a bill. It was a Christmas tree. The short-term spending bill is what always happens in this town, which is they throw a bunch of trash onto a Christmas tree at Christmas, vote for it, and then leave town and hope nobody matters, right? So I get the rejection of the short-term spending bill. All of this makes sense to me, except the part about the debt ceiling, because it's one of the tools Republicans are supposed to have to control spending.
So I'm old enough to remember this picture, Chris. Remember
no, you're not. You're only like 12.
Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, John Thune, all sitting next to each other, smiling, all happy-go-lucky. That was Saturday. And here we are midweek, and now all of a sudden a lot of Republicans are saying, what did Mike Johnson just do?
Well, first, on the point of continuing resolutions and debt ceilings, these Republicans spend like drunken sailors. They love deficit spending. Donald Trump loves deficit spending. When the U.S. economy was growing at 4% annualized GDP, we were still running trillion-dollar deficits with Republicans in control. So I think your idea that don't Republicans want to cut spending, they don't want to cut spending. They want to juice. And I bet Donald Trump is madder than a wet hen about the fact that the Federal Reserve says, we're tapping the brakes. We're going to stop juicing the economy. We got to tap the brakes here. This is not what he wants to hear. As for this CR, Mick is exactly right. It's a dog's breakfast. Mike Johnson negotiated this with Democrats. Throw it all in.
Right.
RFK Stadium. We're going to tear down.
There's a football stadium in the middle of this.
We're going to do everything in there because this is how you're going to build this coalition. I suspect, and I think Mick knows better than I do, I suspect that what happens is that we end up at the end of this week, because a partial government shutdown is looming, that we end up basically with a one-page continuing resolution that says until January 20th, or give Trump a couple weeks, everything stays exactly as nothing else.
Well, I mean, look, put yourself in Mike Johnson's shoes. At least now he's got political cover to put what Donald Trump just asked for on the floor.
Yeah.
Which is the clean CR plus disaster relief plus the one-year farm bill plus the debt ceiling increase, and see if it passes. I don't think they can pass that. I really don't. I think Chris is probably right. Okay. You end up with what we call a clean CR, which is essentially just said, we'll continue spending as is until March. We'll come back after Christmas.
All right. So what exactly is in this 1,500-page government funding deal? First, it's a short-term deal to keep the government open until March 14th, or basically 2 months into the start of the Trump administration. It includes $110 billion in aid for disaster victims and farmers, new restrictions on pharmacy benefit managers or people who negotiate drug prices. It also includes a pay raise for Congress, their first since 2009. Our next guest is already receiving some outside pressure to vote against the measure. This from Congressman Matt Gaetz, the former congressman, to Dusty Johnson. Hey, Dusty. You voted for the CR, and look who's joining us now, Congressman Dusty Johnson, Republican from South Dakota. Hello, Congressman. I see you smiling. Mike Johnson walked you into this thing. Donald Trump is trying to walk you out of it. Do you still have the faith and trust and confidence of the House Speaker?
Listen, the deal that everybody's talking about, this 1,500-page deal, that's dead. We're clearly not going to be voting on that. I do think Mike Johnson is going to end up cutting a pretty good deal on a much skinnier CR. There is clearly a lot more comfort on that front. And I think Donald Trump is right to try to bring the debt ceiling conversation in.
You think he's right? So, Congressman, yeah, so raising the debt ceiling in English is spend more money. It's the legal approval. It brings more debt in. It allows for more debt.
You have to look at this as a leverage point. There are times when Republicans use the debt ceiling as a leverage point, and that can be good to reduce spending. There are times that Democrats use the debt ceiling as a leverage point. So here's what Donald Trump is saying.
And Republicans go crazy when Democrats do it, and you're talking about doing the same thing now.
No, let's be clear. The other side always goes crazy. Anytime that side tries to use leverage, that's what you got it. We just have to stop with the outrage and instead clinically look at this and say Donald Trump is trying to remove a leverage point for Democrats. It's a brilliant play by him. Now, listen, Americans know that this government is too big, it's too expensive, and it's too slow. Now, there are some things we have to do in this CR to address that, but the real success is going to come on January 20th when we get a president who is driven and dedicated to addressing this.
Okay, so I hear you call this a brilliant play, quote unquote, from Trump. I'll start, let me ask again where I started. If that's a brilliant play from Donald Trump, Congressman, do you still have faith, trust, and confidence in the House Speaker, Mike Johnson?
Mike Johnson is in an incredibly difficult situation. Now, on January 20th, he's going to have partners in a Republican Senate and a Republican President Donald Trump. He does not have those partners today. So he's got one leg and two arms tied behind his back, and he's still trying to cut a good deal. I think he's going to, with the help of Donald Trump, ultimately get a good deal, but it's going to be messy between here and there.
Elon Musk, Congressman, came out today and said, you know what, if you vote for this, vote them all out. No matter what the side, vote them all out. He also came out today and he basically said we shouldn't sort of handcuff Trump going forward on any sort of legislative, any laws going forward. Are you worried, Congressman, that Elon Musk could come out with any sort of threat on any sort of piece of legislation that he personally doesn't like? And I see you laughing because you know where I'm going with this, and potentially dump millions or tens of $millions on you or any member of Congress in your primary and say, get Dusty Johnson out or get whoever out.
Any member of Congress who is going to vote running scared is a bad member of Congress. Listen, our oath of office is not to our own political future. At some point, we just got to go do the job and let the political chips fall where they may. Now, I'll say this. Elon Musk is brilliant. He is a disruptor in about 5 different industries. It is not bad to have brilliant people enter their ideas into the public square. Now, listen, are threats the best way to get good governance? I don't think so. But ultimately, we're going to have a better, stronger, more efficient American government 1 year from today, after Vivek and Elon and President Trump have had an opportunity to have us look at things in a fundamentally different way.
So when Elon Musk, and he's an American citizen, he can voice his pleasure or displeasure however he wants, like the rest of us, right? But you're telling me when he comes out and he levies that statement, that members of Congress go ho-hum, or does it catch their attention?
Of course it catches the attention of a lot of them. There are a ton of people in this town who are so concerned about keeping their job, they forget to do their job. But this is not a situation where I think most members of Congress are going to have to pick between keeping their job and doing the right thing. Ultimately, Elon Musk wants what I want, and that is a CR that bends the arc of history toward freedom. We're going to get to a better spot than we're at today, and that is ultimately going to be a very good thing.
Congressman Dusty Johnson, Republican, South Dakota. Got to leave it there. Thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks much.
You got it. All right, Mick. So There are going to be pain points and pressure points for Donald Trump on any sort of spending measure.
Yeah.
The 5 Republicans that you have identified that can sort of be a little, that could push Trump in one way or another are?
The folks that I would watch, because I think other members watch them, and they're very articulate. I'd watch Chip Roy, just because he's a very, very sharp guy, was Ted Cruz's chief of staff, so he's got connections over in the Senate as well. I'd watch Andy Harris. Andy's the new incoming chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, and a really good guy, and folks actually listen to him. Scott Perry, another House member, the former chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, again, highly regarded.
Put the list up. We have the list up as Nick talks about it.
On the Senate, Mike Lee, highly regarded on the right, very, very articulate, one of the smartest members of the Senate, and then Rick Scott, who has been proven himself again and again to be sort of unafraid of any type of politics.
You surprised me, though, with Rick Scott pushing on Trump.
No. Pushing it, I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think these are folks that, when they talk, other people are going to listen. And if they're saying something different than Donald Trump, people are going to want to know why.
Well, with apologies to Congressman Johnson, continuing resolutions do not bend the arc of history. They survive in advance. And if I can be annoying, one of the things that the people that Mick laid out for us there have in common, that a lot of them have in common, they'd like to see Congress actually do its job. This is no way to run a railroad. You cannot, we haven't had a real budget. Congress has not met its statutory responsibility on the federal budget.
I just heard a congressman
four times since the current budget law went into place, then 50 years ago, that they've met their budgetary responsibility. Here's the deal. If we continue to do stopgap after stopgap and stuff like, well, let's just raise the debt ceiling. Let's get rid of the debt ceiling. Let's blow that out of the water.
I just heard a congressman basically say, Congress would say, whatever.
So what has to happen is that people have to work through the committee process. They have to spend their time. Tom Cole is sitting over there ready to go, right? Over at House of Probes. He's ready to go. The chairman at Ways and Means, ready to go. They want to do it. They're ready to go. But what the leaders of both parties do is they hold it back. They say, no. We're not going to let other people get their fingers in the pie. We're going to roll it out at the end. And it's always a disaster. And it's unworthy of a great nation.
And it always spends more money. If you look at connection between what you just, and you're absolutely right. The Budget Control Act came in place, I think, 1974. The debt starts to skyrocket as a percentage of GDP in 1980. Republicans were in the White House at that particular time. Both parties have got us $36 trillion in debt. The two go together. Congress hasn't worked for a long time. And how do they always sort of fill in the gaps? Spend more money, and that's exactly what's getting ready to happen.
And I would say if they end up punting this to whatever the date is, right? Fill in the blank on the date. It doesn't really matter. That is the use-by date for Doge. Because you will know then, whenever they have to sort of figure out, okay, when Donald Trump's in the White House and Mike Johnson and John Thune and they're figuring out spending, if they give you something that says we're going to be in the hole by whatever amount, whatever Doge does at that point in time, it's net or worse.
My experience, and Mick Mulvaney knows a lot better than I do, my experience is that Donald Trump will not do anything that results in bad economic news. And the stock market tanking today over something unrelated, I don't think it's entirely coincidental that the response is, let's not have a shutdown.
But I'm going to read between the lines. You just had a Republican come on and say, the debt ceiling is something that Democrats use as leverage. No, Republicans have always used it to spend less, and Republicans are now willing to apparently give it up without any spending
dollar for dollar, cut for cut.
That's exactly right.
Chris, Mick, thank you both. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. So with all this going on in Congress, you really think Republicans can implement President Trump's immigration plans? We just sort of laid out. You just heard from one member of Congress. I'll talk with the Attorney General of one state who was victorious in a multi-state lawsuit blocking Obamacare for illegal immigrants. He's on the other side of the break. Plus, we've heard from the Pentagon about drones. Later, a top official from the Pentagon tells me, formerly, what he thinks is going on in our skies. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is the center of politics. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation.
The Yeti store has so many great gifts, we had to hire a cattle auctioneer to make the most of these next 30 seconds.
All right, folks, let's get started with the Yeti French Press. Enjoy coffee that stays hot for hours in a French press. 34 ounce for you, 6'4" for the cruise. The Yeti French Press. Up next, waterproof bags. Bags are waterproof. Submersible waterproof doubles. Waterproof backpacks. World's mostly water, so get a waterproof Yeti bag. Do I smell something cooking? Oh, new cast iron skillets made to be passed down like Mama's recipes. Take a steak, cornbread, cobbler's pot pie, and potatoes and next level with 3 sizes of Yeti cast iron skillets.
Gear, gifts, and product experts. Visit the Yeti store in Wicker Park today.
Could the incoming administration expand the use of ankle monitors as part of its immigration plans? Fox News reporting that could be part of new policy regarding illegal immigrants who are not in federal custody. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement has made the case this could be more cost-effective, as estimates for ankle monitors cost $8 per day per person compared to the roughly $150 for those in detention. Meantime, in the state of South Carolina, it is one of more than a dozen states dropping Obamacare from being provided to illegal immigrants, including DACA recipients. Those are those who arrived as children. Now, the state was a part of a lawsuit against a Biden administration rule allowing DACA recipients to sign up for federally subsidized health insurance. A federal judge in North Carolina just struck down that rule. Joining us now is the South Carolina Attorney General, Alan Wilson, who is a part of that lawsuit. Mr. AG, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. What'd you try to do with it?
Well, first off, thank you very much. I mean, this ruling is very important to me. First off, I've been involved with this issue since I was elected in 2010. I remind people that in 2009, in a joint session of Congress, then President Barack Obama stated that not one single taxpayer subsidized health care would be afforded to illegal aliens. If you remember, there was a congressman on the floor of Congress that yelled, "You lie," because that was a lie. That was Congressman Joe Wilson, who happens to be my dad. And then fast forward to 2020, on the floor of a debate in the Democratic primary, every Democratic candidate, including candidates Harris and Biden, raised their hand when asked if they would subsidize health care for illegal aliens and DACA recipients at the expense of taxpayers. They raised their hand. So this is just a backdoor way to spend money illegally for illegal aliens.
I'm looking at the number of illegal immigrants believed to be in South Carolina, your home state, where you're the Attorney General. 88,000 illegal immigrants in that state. We know Donald Trump and his administration want to deport illegal immigrants starting on day one. You really think that they can do 88,000 in South Carolina?
Look, this didn't happen over a couple of years. This has been going on for decades. So I don't have any unreasonable, unmeasured expectations that this will happen in a year or two. But what we have to do is we have to have a sensible. So
you don't think it would happen in the first year or two?
I think that a lot of it could happen. Do I think we could deport all 88,000 people? I don't know that that's possible in 1 year, but I certainly think it's worth the effort. Here's the thing: America cannot be a place for people from all over the world to come to get free stuff. We are incentivizing illegal immigration by baiting the hook with a big juicy worm that is entitlements. We can't be that. We can barely take care of our own children, more or less the children of the world. And so we have to follow the law. We have to enforce our borders, and we have to prevent the drugs, the human trafficking, all the other illicit activity that's coming across the border with the tens of thousands and millions of people who aren't supposed to be here legally.
I don't know if you heard the top of the show, but it essentially we laid out a lot of the infighting that's happening among Republicans right now here in Washington, right? They thought some of this could be easy, and clearly what we're seeing play out today is not. And it just goes to the whole question of how do you think, or why do you think that Donald Trump and the administration can get done what they want to do, considering what we're seeing playing out today on a different issue, which is spending, and the other big issue is immigration?
Well, my argument's always been we have to try. I mean, somewhere along the way, the argument was made that, doing nothing is what got us into this process. I mean, like, not following the law is what got us to where we are today. Following the law apparently is now more difficult. I mean, if we just follow the law and enforce the laws that are on the books, it will not be easy and it will not happen overnight. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
If you don't agree with the deportation process, will you follow it?
Well, I mean, I'm going to follow the law, and I support I support President Trump's immigration policies and closing the border and having only illegals, people who are lawfully entitled to be here, but not people who are illegally here to be present.
Alan Wilson is the Attorney General in the state of South Carolina. Learned a fact today. His father's Joe Wilson. Just had a big win in that court case, joining us live here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us tonight. I appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. Lots of questions, but still not a lot of answers as to how to solve the drone situation over our skies. We're speaking on the other side of the break with a former Pentagon official, and I'll ask him, what do you think all this is about? Plus, a heated hearing on sports betting turns into a debate over transgender rights. What happened up on the Hill? And did you see this? Hunter Biden? Where was he last night? The Hill on NewsNation. Back in a few.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
NewsNation, Donald Trump's cabinet picks making the rounds up on Capitol Hill. TikTok heads to the Supreme Court, and another delay that is out of this world. Our Kelly Meyer here with what's happening in the Capitol. Hello, Kelly.
Hey there, Blake. So President-elect Trump has his hand in the House, as you were talking about, and he also has his hand in the Senate. Trump's cabinet nominees sitting down with senators and working to build support ahead of key confirmation hearings. A Senate Armed Services Committee aide telling me today that Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he could have a hearing as early as January 14th. He was meeting with senators again today, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was walking the halls as well. He stopped to shake hands with Democratic Senator John Fetterman as he faced questions over his position on vaccines. And Tulsi Gabbard, we confirmed, met with Senator Cornyn and Senator Tillis this afternoon. She's vying to become the next Director of National Intelligence. And the Supreme Court announced today they will hear arguments January 10th over the possible ban on TikTok in the U.S. if its Chinese parent company doesn't sell it. The justices will discuss whether or not the law restricts speech in violation of the First Amendment. And that popular social media platform has more than 170 million users in the U.S. And did you see this, Blake? NASA announcing today another delay in sending the 2 astronauts stuck in space home after problems arose with the Starliner's propulsion system back in June. The trip was extended until at least late March. The Boeing Starliner mission was initially meant to last about 8 to 10 days, and now it's looking like the trip will be about 10 months long. And that's what's happening on the Hill, Blake.
Can you imagine?
No, I was
8 months to 10 months, 8 days to 10 months.
I was saying I didn't pack enough for this trip. So what would you do?
NASA can't get them down. This was a Boeing mission. You know where this goes next?
Elon Musk, I thought.
Elon Musk. You figure like they're going to jump in and try to figure this thing out if they're not doing it already.
You hope so. But, you know, these guys, they're handling it so well. They seem to be in good spirits, and this is what they love to do.
They sent them a ballot up there so that they could vote during the election. Remember that?
Yeah. If they could send a ballot, can't they just send something up to get them? But
who knows?
Who knows?
Kelly Meyer, what's happening in the Capitol and beyond. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, meantime, now to the skies over America as the questions over nationwide drone sightings continue. Today, Senate Democrats attempted to pass legislation to help track drones. It was blocked by Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky.
The federal government needs help from local officials detecting these drones. But right now, the locals have neither the authority or resources to act. Our bill will fix that.
If there is a problem, let the Biden administration be forthcoming. Let us know the extent of the problem. Let us know who's flying the drones and let us know what's going on. Instead, this bill says, well, we don't know. The Biden administration doesn't know, but why don't we give the power to the local officials to go after drones?
Joining me now is the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Joseph Franciscan. He oversaw special operations and combating terrorism at the Pentagon. Deputy Chief of Staff, you're working in the drone space. It's fair to say you got a pretty good idea of what's going on up there.
I'd like to think so, Blake.
I'd like to think so.
Having me.
Thanks for being on. What's up there?
It's wild, right? Defense begins at home. This is absolutely a national security threat, and it's a shame that it's taken so long for the feds to get out in front of this and addressing it head on. It's not inconceivable to think that these drones could be used for more nefarious purposes than the possible surveillance that we're seeing in New Jersey today.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna get there in a second, but the White House has basically said nothing to see here. This is hobbyist. This is regular usage. Others are wondering if this is the government behind it. And the government, the DoD, Defense Department, says no Defense Department assets. Do you believe do you believe that that's what this is right now?
I would say probably since these have been spotted, now going forward, it's probably been less of the government. And I'd ask you, which government? Is it us? Is it our adversaries? Things like that. When I was serving in the Defense Department, one of the biggest things that we heard from base commanders was addressing the drone threat. The need, the unmet need was addressing this.
Okay.
Both from a surveillance, both from a protecting of the people and the facilities. It's a critical threat that just has gone unmet.
So here's what was scratching my head. This was Pat Ryder at the podium the other day, and I'll get the Pentagon spokesperson. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Sure.
Is it possible that some of those are surveilling? Absolutely. But can you make that assumption in every case? Not necessarily.
Okay, so that's the former building that you used to work in, and they're basically saying, yeah, there could be surveillance over our military sites. And I'm sitting here thinking, how is that acceptable?
It's a great question.
And how's there not policy to deal with it? Or maybe there is and we don't know, but just sitting back here, how's that acceptable?
The policy is the biggest issue that we have so far today. The FAA controls all airspace. As soon as something's off the ground, it's federal airspace. The policies allow the Defense Department to defeat drones that are directly above their military installations. That does nothing to be once these drones are a foot or 2 feet off the perimeter line. So it's really an overarching, comprehensive debate that needs to be addressed, both from the FAA side and then from also incorporating our state and local partners.
And so the radar systems, as you were explaining to me before, basically are for planes, not for drones, and that needs to be recalibrated.
Absolutely.
Or recalculated.
I think that's certainly part of this. So this is like the Chinese drone or Chinese balloon incident 2.0, where we have a really good job. We do a really good job of protecting our airspace, looking out from our borders, but we don't do a good job looking inside our borders. We certainly do on the approaches for aircraft and airports and things like that. But the ability to detect what is a drone, what is a bird, that's still something that eludes a lot of places, especially in these major metropolitan.
We have an $800 billion budget. How?
We absolutely do. But it's a mathematical issue with looking at how these drones work and things like that. I was very encouraged by General Ryder speaking about the incorporation of the drone buster. It's a handheld device that can easily detect these things and move drones away from the areas. That's a great first step. Okay. The Army has hundreds of these, but why aren't we doing them more?
So explain that. How can you take a drone down without shooting it down?
Sure. So there's a lot of ways. You don't even actually have to kill every drone, if to use that phrase, in order to move it. You get it out of the way. You can actually move it. And so what you're doing is you're intercepting that signal in between the controller and the drone itself, and you're screaming louder. If you imagine it's a conversation between two of us, it's talking over it and moving it, giving it new coordinates to go fly somewhere else. You can do the same thing with satellite navigation that a lot of these drones depend on.
Among your worries is every Saturday or every Sunday in this country, you get hundreds of thousands of people in stadiums, right, watching their favorite football team wherever it is. And in Ukraine, you can put something on a drone, or, in the Middle East, wherever, something on a drone and bang, that's warfare. And you worry that we're not thinking about the God forbid of someone putting something on a drone here and sending it into a mass crowd event.
Absolutely. That was a major fear for us when we were running the counterterrorism efforts, was how do we think like the terrorists think? And it's very easy to take a commercial technology like drones are today, which have advanced rapidly in the last few years, and apply something like a $5 or a very cheap 5-pound grenade or something like that to it, and fly over an SEC game, for example, or the Big Ten, and cause mass panic, hysteria, and casualties. It shouldn't take that. And in the same effect, it shouldn't take a drone collision with an airplane for the FAA to get serious. When we talk to them, we hear the phrase blood on the tarmac, and that's a very fatalistic approach.
Blood on the tarmac,
they say blood. It's going to take blood on the tarmac for the Congress to get serious about this.
So that was my next question, because why should anyone believe that they're going to be the ones to do it?
Sure, I agree.
So then if they can't, how does this get figured out? Because this is, if anything has been exposed, if you take the Pentagon and the White House at face value, it's why on earth did we need to surge resources for Doug in Hoboken flying a drone?
Right. It's a great question. I think right now we're limited where there's only certain 4 agencies, federal agencies, that have the authority to do counter-drone. What I'd love to see, and I think there's bills that you alluded to in the opening here, where both the Senate and the House have approved bills from their respective Homeland Security commissions that would incorporate our state, local, tribal, and territorial authorities to help address the drone threat. We also have the National Guard, who can use DoD authorities today. They can use those drone busters and be on the perimeter line to detect these and push these bad drones away from whether it's sporting events or airfields or even the critical sites that we're seeing them overfly right now.
Joe Franciscan ran Special Operations and Combating Terrorism over at the Pentagon. firsthand account of what he thinks is going on and what comes next. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Blake.
Appreciate it. All right, still to come on the other side of the break here on the Hill. Why was Hunter Biden at a White House party with Flava Flav? It happened. There's pictures. Full panel, other side of the break.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
You're on your game tonight, Cuomo, even though you need a tie.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Just to be clear, I disagree with Bill.
Tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation.
This episode is brought to you by JCPenney. The holiday season is upon us, so your thoughts turn to gifting and JCPenney, where everybody gets more. Like for your loved one, a 12-piece collection of best-selling scents. Or for home lovers who'd love a cast-iron Dutch oven or Keurig coffee maker. Or for the kids, well, of course, JCPenney has all the toys they want. Shop in-store or online. All the right gifts at all the right prices. JCPenney. Make it count.
Local folks who've hosted our tournaments, they need to create accommodations for the people who are playing.
You know, so it's the feds on the one hand, it's the locals on the other hand. The only person who doesn't seem to bear any responsibility in this is you and the NCAA, who are the governing body.
Over the course of the past 2 years, 5 federal court cases involving this question. Let me finish. 5 federal judges have all sided with participation as the standard.
Why don't you go to Amazon and buy a spine online and take a stand?
Change up on Capitol Hill yesterday as GOP senators grilled the president of the NCAA on transgender athletes competing in college sports. That was during a hearing actually on something totally different, on sports gambling. Now, the controversial issue was a lightning rod, you could say, during the 2024 election. The Republican Party has certainly continued to highlight the issue, as Donald Trump did down the home stretch of the presidential campaign. Full panel with me now, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, Linda Tran, former senior advisor to Pete Buttigieg, Chris Direwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, and Kelly Meyer, NewsNation Washington correspondent. Hello to you all. Hey, nice to have you all in. Here's what caught my attention about this one. The NCAA is fighting for survival. After the Supreme Court basically completely overturned the business model, they're fighting for survival. They're fighting to be relevant. They're fighting to keep going. And they're going to need Congress's help on a lot of things. And they went before the Congress yesterday, to the Senate yesterday, on a completely different issue, sports gambling, and the Republican senator said, no. Let's talk about why you have transgender athletes competing at the NCAA, and that's going to be before them, Linda, no matter what happens going forward.
Yeah, you know, Blake, what really worries me about this, I mean, everything that you've just said, I totally agree with and think is true. What worries me is that there's a caricaturing of transgender people that we saw on the campaign trail. We see in a way here, this is performative, as it often is when people are in hearings. And I think these issues are really complicated and that they really require a more thoughtful approach. And I think, you know, so when you see some of this kind of bitter back and forth, you lose that ability.
Donald Trump ran that ad down the home stretch. Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you. And it was what resonated. And that's why you see these Republican senators, in part, honing in on this issue, though.
Absolutely. But that's why it's troubling, because this is otherism and ostracizing an entire group of people.
Ostracizing, Mick?
Listen, it was a hearing about whether or not the NCAA is going to continue to exist, right? It wasn't a hearing about transgenders.
It was on sports betting, right? It's federal or state or all that.
The NCAA, as we know it, is finished. It is. It's already a semi-professional, going to on a professional league. Bill Belichick just cut a deal to become the coach at the University of North Carolina, one of my alma maters. Part of the contract guaranteed that the school will spend $20 million a year on NIL, names, image, and likeness. It's a professional sport. So this may be the last president of the NCAA. By the way, I thought I recognized the name. Did you recognize who it was?
It's former governor of Massachusetts.
Former governor of Massachusetts.
Republican,
by the way, who was catching heat yesterday from the Republicans up there.
Well, obviously, most congressional hearings are awful and pointless, and mostly they are performative, as Linda said. It's a bipartisan addiction to cheap sound bites and hot takes. The reality, of course, is that under federal law, under federal civil rights law, we have this mixed point about NIL, but also we just have this warren of regulations that relate to how athletics are conducted at these schools. So based on Supreme Court decisions about transgenderism and the civil rights of people in that category, plus Title IX, what are you going to do? And it's not easy. You can't go to Amazon and buy a spine and then tell as Charlie Baker was trying to say, and tell the court system we don't care.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, also, as you were saying, that a former Republican or governor, right?
Yeah.
So it just shows the difference between maybe the two different parties or the same party, but the differences in them over the years and how this has evolved into a different Republican Party.
All right. Meantime, Hunter Biden and the hip-hop legend Flavor Flav gone viral after seeming to hit it off at the White House. The two attended Monday night's party for social media creators. And this is the video here. Hunter Biden and President Biden do not care what you think about Hunter Biden.
And they shouldn't.
They look like they're having a great time.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the guy got his pardon. Say what you want to. I think that the big deal about the pardon is I think the message that came with it. That's what got the President Biden so much hot water with his own party, because he admitted or tried to make the case that the justice system was politicized. But face it, put that aside. The guy got pardoned. It's their last Christmas in the White House. Who cares who's there visiting?
But could you make the case, though, he can go whenever he wants, and he knows that he's going to be captured. He knows it's going to be out there, and it's just going to put the spotlight back on his father for arguably the most controversial thing, or clearly among them, of his presidency.
I mean, I don't know that Hunter Biden is thinking about all those things as he's heading into the big room, which we all know and love, and the eggnog. I mean, it's very clearly they're having a lovely time.
You know, I guess I was going to say that maybe he was in town this week. I'm just thinking of different reasons, but this was the anniversary. They were making their way back to the death of his wife and kids. So maybe they were all together this week at the White House and then traveled back to Delaware together. He wanted to enjoy the party. Maybe that's all it was. I haven't gotten that from the White House, but also, as you said, he was in the room for this. And I I don't understand, you know,
I'm waiting for the
Flavor Flav's
album.
doing there.
I'm waiting for the album between those two.
Yeah.
Public Enemy featuring Hunter Biden.
Should he be doing this?
Well, I mean, shame is dead, and it goes unmourned. There will be no wake for the death of shame and dignity in American politics and public life. And one point of view says, just get in it and roll around in it like a dog in a dead deer and live it up and do whatever you can. But I would just say Hunter Biden should be ashamed of himself for what he did to his father, for what he put his dad through, for the way he conducted himself, not during his active addiction and not when he was doing those things, but the astonishingly selfish behavior, the, dare I say, unpatriotic behavior that he engaged in when he put his own struggles ahead of his own party.
Some might take issue with unpatriotic.
Yeah, it was the story that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden told us was that Donald Trump was an existential threat to the United States of America and had to be stopped from returning to power. And Hunter Biden kept putting himself. I remember when he stood out in front of the Congress and had a press conference and said, me. He showed up at this hearing. He got attention for himself. He followed a legal strategy that under the story that he and his father told, which is that Donald Trump must be stopped at all costs, that's the number one job. Everything that he did in the past year helped undermine his father and his party's chances of holding on to the White House in re-election. It was astonishingly selfish, and this is an appropriate coda to his astonishingly selfish year.
We'll leave it there. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Harumph?
Harumph.
There we go. Harumph. Still to come. Other side of the break. A secret committee wants to release the ethics report on Matt Gaetz, and it could be coming any moment now. Leland Vittert, host of On Balance. Other side of the break.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
House Ethics Committee expected to release the report they were preparing on the former Congressman Matt Gaetz. It is a reversal for the committee, which had said it wouldn't release the report. Now, Gaetz resigned from Congress just days before the report was going to be released. And after as well, that right after President-elect Donald Trump picked him to be the next Attorney General. Gates has since dropped out from that. Joe Khalil here with me. That's Joe Khalil, if you didn't know him already. So what changed here?
So, House Ethics Committee, what I have heard is that at the very beginning, when they took this first vote that was deadlocked, there were actually several Republicans, at least one or two on this very small committee, who wanted to release the report, and they got pressured last minute by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. That was last month. So I don't know exactly what is different today, but...
So they were pressured then.
They were pressured then.
So it didn't come out.
So it didn't come out.
Something changed.
We've got some distance now, and it seems like maybe that pressure has faded away. We're going to try to learn more about that. But what I can also tell you is that it's kind of an open secret. Matt Gaetz did make some enemies within his own party.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans don't like him. Right. And today, interestingly, we talked to several Republicans. A lot of them said, yeah, release it. It should be released. This is Tom McClintock. If you don't know him, he's one of the most conservative House Republicans there is. This is what he said.
I think it's high time they did. This was a public report prepared with public funds about the public conduct of a public official. Of course, the public has a right to see it.
So it's important to note also the DOJ looked into Gaetz, didn't charge him. Matt Gaetz basically came out today, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, I had made some decisions in my 30s I wouldn't necessarily make now, but nothing was criminal.
Right. Yeah, and the DOJ, to Matt Gaetz' credit, didn't bring charges. They had pieces of information in front of them. The House Ethics Committee, we should mention for people, they have been doing this investigation for some 2.5 years. And they were right at the finish line, 48 hours from releasing this when Matt Gaetz resigned.
And now they might release this just in time before Christmas, before people go off and stop paying attention to some of this stuff.
Right, so I'm keeping a close eye on the door of the House Ethics Committee room in the next 24, 48 hours. I think there might be papers stacking up there.
Joe Khalil, thank you, bud. Appreciate it. Joining me now, Leland Vittert, host of On Balance. Leland, what's among the many storylines here is Matt Gaetz' future, right? There had always been rumblings, rumors, thoughts, questions if he would run for governor in the state of Florida. And, among the many things that could come in this, who knows? But you got to wonder if it impacts Matt Gaetz going forward.
It may. I think it shows how much hatred there is for Matt Gaetz among a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill. There's really a disdain for him, and there's a lot of anger towards him for how he's acted. I thought his statement was pretty interesting, where he said, I was imprudent in my youth, to paraphrase it. Again, we're at a different time in American history, and he is able to set himself up once again as the victim in a very Trumpian way.
I'm smiling because I just walked over here, sat down next to you, and I see what you got here.
There it is.
Is that 1,500 something pages of the bill?
1,547 pages. It is actually only the front page of the bill. Rather than print it all out, we figured we would just have a representation.
This is a pen, and so if you stand a pen up, it prints up to higher than a pen. You got Chris Cillizza coming up.
Chris Cillizza, Lauren Roberts coming up.
Go have a great show, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
See
Here we
ya.
go.